guys, my name is Erin Estrada, and I'm going to be facilitating professional development today on Universal Design for Learning. So first off, I wanted to give you guys some background information about the needs assessment data. Based on the needs assessment that you guys took, 22 of the 24 participants were very highly interested in engaging in professional development related to inclusive instructional practices for students with disabilities. This professional development is on Universal Design for Learning because all students are positively affected by correct implementation of UDL strategies. This professional development opportunity is intended for a faculty that is not familiar with UDL. However, if you are familiar with Universal Design for Learning, this should still be an opportunity to deepen and broaden your understanding. At the end of this presentation, you will be familiar with Universal Design for Learning and be able to identify UDL when you see it. Most importantly, you will be able and ready to implement at least one of the aspects of the UDL framework the next time you plan instruction. In an ideal scenario, you will also be inspired to integrate the principles of UDL because it will appeal to you as an educator. UDL is a shift in how we think about students and curriculum. UDL is related to many educational practices that came before it, but it also has roots in the worlds of architecture and product design. Things like cuts and curbs and easy-to-read signs are examples of universal design, or design meant to be accessible to everyone, including users with disabilities. Implementers of UDL have found that when they make curriculum more accessible, everyone benefits. The UDL framework is based on learner variability, which is scientifically validated. These MRIs show 3 different brain activities of 3 different people tapping their finger. The red color in each image indicates where the brain activity is mostly taking place for that activity for each person. We all use different parts of our brains to do all kinds of things. No learner is exactly like any other learner. This slide shows how even the simplest task is processed in different parts of the 3 people's brains. Everybody tap your fingers in a pattern like this. Are we all doing it? For some people, finger tapping would be tapping up in all kinds of areas, while the person in the middle exhibited very little neurological activity during this task. If you were all hooked up to MRIs, your MRIs would be lighting up in different areas as well. Everything humans do is like this. So what is UDL? It is a way to provide general education curriculum learning opportunities for all students that are equitable, effective, and inclusive. How fast can UDL? Go ahead and think of a list of all of the different ways that your life has been made easier by universal design. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. So what did you learn? Many different aspects of universal design are used all over in architecture as well as product design. What we need to do is begin to integrate this into our education. Here's a quick video on Universal Design for Learning that will give you an introduction to Universal Design for Learning. So that is what we are here to talk about today is how we can aim for those students on the that need our most support. Universal Design for Learning uses two different types of brain research as a basis. There's the research on learner variability, which was provided in a previous slide. Learner variability shows us that no two people learn in the exact same way. The second type of brain research that UDL is based on is the research about the three different networks that we know to exist in our brains. All three of these networks need to be engaged for high quality learning to happen. The UDL framework attempts to give teachers tools to make sure all of these networks are engaged with our learners. So the first network is the affective network. It is the why of learning. It's how learners get engaged and stay motivated. how they are challenged, excited, or interested. These are affective dimensions. The teacher needs to stimulate interest and motivation for learning. The recognition network is the what of learning. It is how we gather facts and categorize what we see, hear, and read. Identifying letters, words, or an author's style are recognition tasks. Educators must present information and content in different ways. Strategic networks are the how of learning. It is planning and performing tasks, how we organize and express our ideas. Writing an essay or solving a math problem are strategic tasks. We must differentiate the ways that students can express what they know. These three major principles of UDL, engagement, representation, and action and expression, are based on the idea of learner variability and the three neural networks that affect learning. The UDL framework is structured entirely around this scientifically validated concept that in order to give every student a chance to achieve at a high level, we must seek to engage them in a variety of ways, that we must offer the students a variety of ways to access the material, and we must give students options about how to show us that they are learning. So let's talk about some vocabulary here. The first word for vocabulary that we're going to discuss is framework. Universal Design for Learning is a framework. It's not a checklist. It is the interior frame around which you build the structure that is to become your lesson. Just like a steel or metal building frame, the UDL framework has been carefully tested to ensure that it will stand the test of time. It is important to understand that UDL cannot be boiled down to a simple checklist. It is about thoughtfully designing instruction with a particular group of students in mind, because what might be a well-designed lesson for one group of students will not necessarily work for another group of students. The next piece of vocabulary we're going to discuss is learning environment. When we talk about the learning environment as it relates to UDL, we're talking about both the space and or location of your lesson and the way that the students can use that space. In an ideal scenario, a teacher has the opportunity to tailor space to meet the needs of the students for each lesson and to provide access to tools, resources, and strategies for learning. Further, the tools and resources are flexible in a UDL environment, meaning their use is not specifically prescribed by the teacher. Look around your classroom and make some observations about whether this space could have been made more accessible or user-friendly. Think about a learning environment that is digital. How might we make our digital learning environments more user-friendly? It is a common misconception that UDL is just incorporating technology into instruction. Sometimes UDL does not include technology, but if the technology options are too difficult, then the technology can actually be a hindrance to learning. UDL is about access to learning and overcoming obstacles so the learning environment should be mindfully constructed to be accessible for all students. The next vocabulary word is access. When we use the term access in a conversation about universal design for learning, we can be referring to a student's physical ability to access the information and or to a student's ability to connect to the information. If students have access, it means that they are given a reason to emotionally attach to the lesson. They know that they will have a variety of opportunities to interact with the topic, and they will have multiple chances to demonstrate their understanding of the topic. Access is important to UDL because sometimes it is enough to present information in a single way and ask students to respond in a uniform way, but often it is not. Often we need to think of individual students and ask ourselves, will this student want to learn about this? Will this student be able to learn about this? Will this student be able to show me what she or he has learned? If the answer to any of those questions is maybe or is a no, we need to increase access. Go ahead and take some time to write some notes on your handout about this vocabulary so far. The final vocabulary word that we will be talking about is barriers. A barrier in UDL is anything that inhibits a student's ability to fully engage with the lesson. It can be a physical barrier, a lack of background knowledge, difficulties with learning, or difficulties regarding emotionally connecting with the lesson or the instructor. There are some barriers, like being hungry, that UDL can't fix, but most academic barriers, like poor writing skills, a small vocabulary base, or difficulty with number fluency, can be mediated by providing multiple means of engagement, representation, action, and expression. All students can succeed in a UDL classroom, meaning everyone can work toward mastery. The primary purpose of UDL is to break down barriers to learning. If the learning barriers are removed, all students can learn and be successful, and so can teachers. Barriers are the things that keep students from succeeding, and the goal of using the UDL framework is to mitigate barriers. Some of you right now are not taking in what we're talking about. You're uncomfortable in your seat, or you're worried about something, or you don't think you need this information. Maybe you have a hard time reading the things off the screen, or because you are annoyed with the sound of my voice. Maybe I've used words that you don't understand, and that's made you tune out, or you have harbored a deep resentment in UDL ever since you first heard about it because it just seems like the same old fad wrapped up in a new name. These are all barriers. In a perfect UDL setting, I would try to address all of them. Of course, I can't address all of them, but I'm going to do my best to minimize the barriers. That's why we are going over vocabulary. That's why there was a video at the beginning that was meant to get you really emotionally invested in UDL. In a classroom setting, you may have students who have bad handwriting. Do you fight with the student about their handwriting, or do you let them do assignments on a computer? Sometimes we have to struggle through barriers, but sometimes we can just work around them. The UDL framework asks you to put learning at the center of your instruction and keep the barriers as far to the outside as possible.